Starwalker Studios presents Game Master's Journey, your multidimensional RPG podcast. Hello, fellow gamer. Welcome to episode 171 of Game Master's Journey. I'm your host, Lex Starwalker, and on this show, we discuss the craft and the art of game mastering. I've been running RPGs for over 25 years now, and I produce this show in the hopes that you can benefit from my experience, my triumphs, and my screw-ups. I've got a great show for you today. I'm going to move to the other side of the GM screen for this episode and talk with my dungeon master, Brett. I've been playing in Brett's campaign for quite a while now, and I've been having a lot of fun. Brett runs in his own homebrew world, so I'm going to ask him about his GMing style and about his setting of Terindal. We'll talk about how to avoid railroading PCs, and I asked Brett about his experiences running D&D at the higher tiers of play. So Brett's actually run 5th edition at a higher level than I have. I play a Hill Dwarf War Cleric in Brett's game named Keldor, and he's currently 13th level. So as I said, I've been having a load of fun with this campaign, and I thought it would be super cool to get Brett on here and talk to my dungeon master and kind of come at this from a different angle, from the angle of a player and a fellow GM interviewing another GM, one that I've actually played with. And Brett's also played in some of my adventures, and he's actually currently playing a character in my Hidden Shrine campaign, Kihai, the Fire Genasi Way of the Four Elements monk. So really excited to do this interview today, and I think you'll really enjoy it. But before we get Brett on board, I do have a couple quick things I want to talk about at the beginning of the show here. First off, I want to let you know that I have set up a Discord server for Starwalker Studios. So I mentioned this on a previous episode that I was considering setting one up, and I heard from quite a few people who were interested in that. So I decided, what the hell? We'll give it a whirl. So I set up the server, and I posted a few temporary links in our community over on Google+, just to get some of you on the server to make sure that I'd set everything up right and people could actually chat with one another and all that good stuff. And we've been using it for a couple days now at the time of recording this, and seems to be working fine. So I went ahead and created a more permanent link that you can use to join the Starwalker Studios Discord server. So you can find that link in the show note for this episode. In the show node? Did I just say show node? In the show notes for this episode 171 of Game Master's Journey, over on the website at starwalkerstudios.com/Game Master's Journey/171. Also, you can find it in our Google Plus community. So my thoughts as far as what we're going to use this Discord server for is, first of all, it's just a place where you can chat with other GMs in real time. So the Google community is great and fantastic, and we have a lot of great discussions on there. But with Discord, you can chat in real time, just like you're chatting with someone with text messaging. And so you can get on there and you can kick ideas back and forth, or just talk about gaming or whatever you want to talk about with all the other listener GMs that are in the channel. The other thing is Discord has voice capability. So right now I do have a voice channel set up where you can go into that channel and chat with other GMs using voice, so you don't have to type. And as we go forward, I may set up more channels and kind of organize things more as we get more users, and we might need to at some point have different channels for different topics if we get a lot of users. But for right now, I think it's best to have everybody in one place so we can all congregate and talk about gaming. Another thing that I'm hoping to use this for in the future is as a way to pull in feedback when I'm recording the show. I'm still trying to figure out a way that I can live stream the recording of Game Master's Journey. And when I figure that out and when I'm able to do that, people in the Discord can chat with one another while I'm recording, and I can kind of keep an eye on that as I'm able to, and maybe pull in questions that people might ask, or ideas they might have, or thoughts on whatever topic I'm discussing. And another thing is I have set up on the Discord a voice channel called GMJ Waiting Room. And the idea is that ultimately I will use that to pull people into the show. So once I start live streaming the episodes, you can be in there if you want to maybe be on the show for a minute or two. And if I have time, I can pull someone from that waiting room onto the show, and you can talk with me using voice chat on an actual episode, which would be super cool. And I've been using Discord recently to do interviews. I did the interview with Christopher on Discord, and I'm doing the interviews with Brett on Discord, and I've been really pleased with it. And speaking of Discord, real quickly, I just saw a tweet today from the folks over at Discord saying that they have given access to beta test the voice chat on Discord to 5% of their users. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like I'm one of the lucky 5%, but this is a really great sign that voice chat is going to coming to Discord a lot sooner than I thought it was. I'd seen a tweet from them back in 2016 mentioning that they were working on voice chat, and then I hadn't seen anything from them since then until very recently. So I was thinking it was maybe on the back burner, or maybe they weren't even doing it anymore. But there have been a few tweets from them just in the last week or two indicating that they are still working on it. And now this tweet today saying that at least 5% of us are going to be able to actually try it out. So that is really super cool. And in the show notes over at starwalkerstudios.com for this episode, I will put a link to the article over on medium.com explaining this. And another part of this rollout, in addition to video chat, will be the ability to screen share on Discord. So if you don't know anything about Discord, Discord is up to this point at least, is a voice and text chat app that is made with gamers in mind. So one way that I'm sure a lot of people use it is if you play a game like Elder Scrolls Online or World of Warcraft or Rift or some other kind of MMO, you can use Discord for your guild and for raiding and things like that. And it's an alternative to other services that have been around for a while, like Ventrilo and TeamSpeak and Mumble, and there's others I'm forgetting right now. But there's been voice servers. This isn't a new thing, but Discord is better, in my opinion, than these other options, because it's really easy to use, and it's even fairly easy to set up. I've set up Mumble and TeamSpeak servers before, and setting up the Discord server was a lot easier. For you as a user, someone that just wants to use it and you're not concerned about setting up your own server, it's super easy. And in fact, you can use it through your browser. You don't even have to install any software. Although they do have software for Windows and for OS and also for Android and iPhone. So you do get more functionality with the software. So if you're going to use Discord a lot, you probably want to get the actual app. But it's awesome. It's super easy to use. And like I said, we've had our server up and going for a couple days now, and it's really fun. I get notifications on my phone when people are in there chatting, and I can use it on my phone. I can use it on my computer, and keep up with everybody. So we're going to use it to continue to try to build and expand the community around this podcast, and to allow everyone to better network with one another and share ideas and stories and things like that, which you can now do in real time. And you can also do by voice in real time, which is awesome. And eventually we'll have video chat. Now, I don't know if a video public chat channel will work or if that will even be a possibility because of bandwidth issues. And I'm sure, there'll be a limit to how many people can be in a video chat at once. And already they've mentioned that as it is right now, at least, if you have more than 5 people in a video chat, that you may see degradation in quality. So I don't know if that's just going to be a thing here in the beginning, and that's something that won't be true in the future or not. But video chat does take a lot more bandwidth than voice chat and then text chat. So they're testing it with a small number of people now, just to test their servers and everything, as opposed to, like they said in this article, opening it up to everybody, and then the servers crash and now nobody can use it. So they're taking cautious steps here at the beginning, making sure they've got all the bugs ironed out, or at least as many of them as they can, before they make this available to everyone. So probably going to be at least a month or more before all of us see this capability, but it is coming, and I think it's pretty safe to bet that we'll have it yet in 2017, which is awesome. And the reason I'm super excited about the video chat capability being added to Discord is I can use it for my online games. So I've had nothing but problems with Roll20's video chat, and so much so that I've moved to using Google Hangouts for the video chat for my current game, The Hidden Shrine, even though we're still using Roll20 for the virtual tabletop, because I've got these awesome high-def maps from Mike Schley that he'd let me use for this. So, I want to use them. I want to use the virtual tabletop. But unfortunately, Roll20's chat is so buggy and problematic that it just caused a lot of issues and led to a lot of wasted time when we're screwing with Roll20 instead of actually gaming. So I sidestepped most of those problems by using Hangouts instead. But unlike Hangouts, Discord is made for gamers, and I believe there's already ways that you can have dice rollers on Discord, or maybe they're adding it. But I have a feeling that it's probably a bot. Maybe, I don't know. I'm still pretty new to the Discord world myself, and still learning everything that you can do with it. But, once they add the screen share capability and the video capability, this is going to be a great alternative for online gaming to using Skype, which just tends to have horrible call qualities and lots of connection issues, or using Hangouts, which is much more reliable and better quality than Skype, but still isn't really made for gamers, especially since they've taken away the API and we can't have dice roller apps and things like that in Hangouts anymore. So to have something like this that's actually made for gaming is ideal. And Roll20 has chat built in, but it doesn't work very well. Fantasy Grounds doesn't have any kind of chat at all. And there's a new tabletop that's just virtual tabletop that's just come on the market. I think it's called Power Virtual Tabletop. Let me look. Yeah, Power Virtual Tabletop. So they've just come out. They've been in beta, and I've checked them out a little bit. And they've launched. Now, unlike Roll20, Powered Virtual Tabletop is not free, but it is significantly less expensive than Fantasy Grounds. It looks like, anyway. I haven't looked into it super closely, but I'll have a link to that in the show notes as well too, if you want to check that out. And you can, I think, still try it out for free. And I think there is some functionality that you can use of the Powered Virtual Tabletop for free, but to fully use it for your virtual tabletop solution, you're going to have to pay a subscription. It's not a lot. It's like $3 a month or something like that. It's nothing compared to what you're going to pay for Fantasy Grounds or D&D Beyond, which doesn't even have a virtual tabletop yet. Speaking of D&D Beyond, I wasn't actually planning to talk about this today, but since I just thought about it, I guess I'll mention it. D&D Beyond has now released their pricing model, so you can go to their website and check that out. So I will have a link to their pricing information in the show notes over at starwalkerstudios.com. But just quickly, in a nutshell, you're going to have to pay to get access to the source books. So it's $29.99 for normal source books like the Player's Handbook or the DMG or the Monster Manual, and then $24.99 for adventures. In addition to having to pay for the source books, you also have to pay a subscription fee. They have one tier at $2.99 a month, and then a higher tier at $5.99 a month. They are having a sale right now. You can get the 3 core books, the PHB, DMG, and Monster Manual for $19.99 each for a limited time. So that's the gist of the pricing. There's more to it than that. You can definitely check out the link in the show notes if you want to know more. There have been reactions to this all over the spectrum. Everything from people who think this is awesome and they're happy to shell out this money, to people who think it's overpriced and who are even enraged or at least miffed that they have to pay for books again digitally that they've already bought. So you paid $50 or whatever you paid for the Player's Handbook, and now you got to go pay $20 to be able to use it on D&D Beyond, which I completely agree. That's not ideal. However, I don't really understand the rage that some people are expressing, because you don't have to use this, and you can access the SRD information on D&D Beyond for free. The $2.99 a month is just giving you the ability to create unlimited numbers of characters on there and gives you some more functionality. If you're a player, you can probably get what you need out of D&D Beyond for the most part without having to pay for anything. If you're a GM and you're wanting to use it, extensively, you're probably going to have to pay something, especially for the source books. But again, you don't have to use it. So why people are getting so upset about this, I don't understand. If you think it's overpriced, don't buy it. It's that simple. You don't have to rage about it. I mean, we've been playing D&D for decades and we never had D&D Beyond. So obviously you don't need it. And, me personally, I don't plan on using it. I'm certainly not going to pay for a subscription or buy digital books on it. I may, since I do run online so much, I may occasionally use it to look up things in the SRD. I have found I like it better than other sites that have the SRD. It's just a little more better designed UI and more attractive. And it is fairly quick to look up something that's in the SRD, especially since I'm moving away from Roll20. In Roll20 now, you can look up stuff in the SRD. So like if you want to know about a magic item or a spell, you can look that up in Roll20, which is free. So that's what I use now. But in my campaign I'm going to be running soon, my Hinterlands of Elandria campaign, I'm getting away from Roll20 entirely since I'm going to run at Theater of the Mind. I don't need the virtual tabletop. So I'm just going to use Hangouts for chat and ultimately Discord for chat once the video comes to Discord. And not going to use Roll20 at all. So at that point, I might start using D&D Beyond just for SRD access. But I really have zero interest in, paying for it for one thing. I might fiddle with it more if it were free, but I'm certainly not gonna pay for it because I don't need it. And honestly, I prefer doing things the analog way anyway. I'd rather look something up in a book than look it up on a website anyway. So the only reason I would even use it at all is because I am running online right now. But if I were running an in-person game, I wouldn't use it at all. So it's not for me, right? But I don't see any need to get upset about it because I don't care. This isn't something I'm interested in. Or if it was something I was interested in, I wouldn't want to pay what they're charging for it. So I just don't buy it. It's not a big deal. All right, so enough about D&D Beyond. I'll have a link in the show notes if you want to check out more details on the pricing. I also have a link to Powered Virtual Tabletop if you want to check that out. Looks pretty cool. Definitely a possible alternative to Roll20, but that also does not have any kind of chat. So Fantasy Grounds, which in my opinion is way overpriced for something that is so outdated, at least the UI, it looks like something from the 90s. But Fantasy Grounds has no chat. Powered Virtual Tabletop has no chat. Roll20 has chat, but it doesn't work very well, and you're better off not using it, frankly. So whatever virtual tabletop you use, you're going to need something for chat. And so I think we're all going to be very happy to have Discord as a solution as opposed to Skype or Hangouts, assuming that, it works well and everything. But I'll just say, if you're going to be using the Discord video chat, give them a little time to get the bugs out. Video chat is I've learned is a huge undertaking, and is why, Powered Virtual Tabletop is not doing that right now. And I actually spoke with the developer of Powered Virtual Tabletop. He is very awesome at responding to posts on their forums and feedback and whatnot. And I was asking, are you going to have video chat? And if not, like really suggesting that they do it, because I think it's, personally, I think it's a necessary part of a virtual tabletop. Like for me personally, I'm not even interested in a virtual tabletop that doesn't have video chat, because I feel like it's like buying a car that doesn't have wheels. It's like kind of useless without the video chat. I don't want to play by post. I don't want to play just text chat. So to me, it seems like you kind of have to have it. But he responded to my post and said that basically, there's more involved with creating a good video chat solution than there is involved with creating a virtual tabletop. So it's like, it would probably at least double the amount of work and time and everything else it would take. So it's just kind of beyond the scope of what he's doing right now. And he says, you're better off as a user finding an application like, say, Skype or Hangouts or now soon Discord, where that's their thing and that's what they do, which totally makes sense. So, I'd say it'll probably be a while, if ever, that we see a good virtual tabletop with good, reliable video chat. So at least for the foreseeable future, you're going to need something else. And I think hopefully we're going to be really happy with Discord, because it's for gaming and it's going to work better for us than Skype or Hangouts, and it's going to be a lot easier to set up and use than something like Mumble or TeamSpeak. So anyway, enough about that. Want to remind you, you can now get Game Master's Journey t-shirts and other swag. I can never say that. You can find a link to our store on Spreadshirt over at starwalkerstudios.com in the show notes for Game Master's Journey. And we've got quite a few designs that you can choose from. You can get all different colors of shirts and sweatshirts and all kinds of stuff, as well as other things like coffee mugs and phone cases and all kinds of stuff. So check that out. And they're really cool designs done by my wife, Nikki, and a really great way that you can not only support the podcast monetarily, but also help grow our audience by wearing your shirt around. And hopefully people will be like, hey, what's that about? And you can be like, hey, this is a really cool RPG podcast I listen to. You should check it out. Also, during the announcements and just telling you some things that are going on in the RPG space and specifically the D&D space, Matthew Colville, who was on the show in episode 101, and I'll link that in the show notes as well. We had an awesome discussion about GMing on episode 101. Matthew Colville has created a D&D and Pathfinder adventure database, and that's adventurelookup.com. And that's the address, but I'll also have it linked in the show notes as well. And Adventure Lookup is super calm. What am I saying today? It's super awesome. This is a user-maintained database, so you can sign up and then you can put things into the database. And it's a database of D&D adventures and Pathfinder adventures, and it's D&D adventures throughout the history of D&D. It's not just 5th edition adventures. It's all the adventures. And Matt and the people that have helped him with this have done a fantastic job of setting this up. There are all kinds of filters that you can use when you're searching for an adventure. Filters like setting, system, level range, NPCs, monsters, magic items, etc. And really the limitation is just how well whoever input that particular adventure into the database did at filling out all the different fields that you can fill out. So if someone did a good job and filled everything out, you can find an adventure that uses a certain monster or that gives out a certain magic item or that is a certain level range in a certain setting or whatever. And you can search by as many of these filters as you want. You can search by system. So if you're looking for 3rd edition adventures or Pathfinder adventures, you can do that. It's super cool. So definitely check it out. I have that linked in the show notes at starwalkerstudios.com. And if a favorite adventure of yours isn't in there, you could be super awesome and do all of us in the RPG community a solid and put it in. It's not hard to do. I actually put in my adventure, The Trickster's Labyrinth, the other night, and it's not hard to do. It just takes a little time. And I'm not sure. I wonder, maybe Matthew, if you're listening to this, you can let me know. I wonder if someone other than the person who put the adventure in can later edit it. Hopefully that's the case, so that, like maybe you put in an adventure like Keep on the Borderlands, which is already in there. But let's say it's not, and you put that in. Well, maybe you don't have time to go through and find out what all the monsters are and put all those in, but you put the rest of the stuff in. It'd be cool if another user could then edit that and add in the monsters that you didn't put in. But I'm not sure how it works, if only the person who submitted a given adventure can edit it, and of course, whoever is administrating the site, I'm not sure. So you'd have to look into that, but I imagine at the very least there's a way that you could contact an administrator and say, hey, can you add these details to this given adventure? Kind of like on how Amazon, if you find a product listing that's incomplete or erroneous, you can let Amazon know, like, hey, this book's actually a hardcover, not a softcover, or hey, this book actually has this many pages, and they can fix it. So I would assume that even if that functionality doesn't exist right now, that it ultimately will. But Matthew, if you're listening, you can let me know. Or if anyone else listening knows, you can let me know. GameMastersJourney@gmail.com. And finally, if you haven't checked out Matthew's YouTube channel, definitely do so. He's got a lot of great content, a lot of content similar to what we talk about on this show, advice for GMs and things like that, as well as some actual play and just all kinds of RPG goodness. Definitely check out his YouTube channel, and I'll link that in the show notes as well. Wizards also recently released the most recent plane shift. This one, Amonkhet, is how I'm going to say that. If you don't know what the plane shifts are, these are free PDFs that Wizards puts out describing how you can use one of the settings from the Magic the Gathering collectible card game as a D&D setting. And they've done 4 of these now. They've done, in addition to Amonkhet, they've done Zendikar, Innistrad, and Kaladesh. So these are pretty cool. If you're a fan of one of these settings from Magic, these will be invaluable if you want to use the setting for your D&D game or pull in elements of it. A lot of times these will have alternate PC races, alternate monsters you can use, even sometimes spells and things like that. So they're a great source for, flavor information, as well as possibly some new mechanics that you can use in your game. So for instance, Amonkhet is very Egyptian inspired. So if you dig that, or you'd like to have a world or a part of your world that's more Egyptian flavored, ancient Egyptian, I should say, then you should check it out. So like I said, there's been 4 of these so far. I will put links directly to the PDFs in the show notes at starwalkerstudios.com because they are not easy to find on Wizards' far from user-friendly website. The most recent one is fairly easy to find, but finding the others actually involves some Google foo. You have better luck finding it on Google than actually trying to find it on their website, because their website is just horribly disorganized. But yeah, I'll have all those linked in the show notes so you can just go there and grab all 4 of them if you want. Me personally, I'm really hoping that one of these days they do Theros, because that's by far my favorite Magic setting, and I would definitely want to use elements of that in Primordia, because I love Theros. These also coincide with their Art of Magic books. I'm not sure exactly what they're called. So, each of these 4 settings, they've released kind of a coffee table book of the art of that setting. So I'm sure they'll do Theros eventually, because the art for Theros was phenomenal. So they'd be crazy not to do an Art of Theros book. And once they do that, someone will probably do a plane shift Theros so that we can use Theros stuff in our D&D games. So really cool stuff. And, we talk about world building a lot on this show, and these are great sources of inspiration that you can use when building your world. So really cool. Definitely check those out. And, they're free. So the price is right? All right. Well, I think that's it for the top of the show. I really want to get to the interview with Brett. So without further ado, let's move on to our main topic. So Brett Nilsson is joining me on the show today, and I thought this would be fun because I'm wanting to have people on the show more, and I thought it'd be fun to talk to you since you run a game that I play in, so I thought it would be cool to talk to another GM who I've played in your game, so I
sure
know things about it and know what to ask maybe. And you've obviously done a lot of world building, which is a good topic. And I've just been curious about that anyway. So
this is definitely the most work I've put into a world. It's been a blast though. It's been an absolute blast. It didn't start like this. We started, there were 2 of my friends and we started with just the 3 of us, and we'd each take turns DMing. Andy, Terry, and I, and we would start one story, and then somebody else would pick up another story. Would probably wind up in a different city. We played in a couple different areas, and it got to a point where I just volunteered to be. It helped to, if we were going to continue with a story arc, it helped to kind of coalesce everything and bring it in under one story. And so I volunteered to DM full time. That's kind of how we came to be where we are.
So were you, when you guys were taking turns, were you all using the same setting or how did that work?
Yeah, we were kind of building it as we went. I was the first to begin. So we started off in this one little town, a town that you're familiar with now. It's we borrowed a name from one of the maps that I found online. It's the town of Westbridge, and that was kind of the go-to point for the beginning of all the stories. Everything kind of started there. Then I started in Westbridge, and then Terry had a plot take off in another city not far from there called Brendel, and then which was all his creation. And then Andy had a story take place up north through a little plot of land that he kind of spread out and created. And so we kind of, after that one, we came back into Westbridge, and I don't remember how it all came together now, but we decided I think I had a story idea, and then I just continued from there. And then with that, I started building the map out, and the small little corner of a continent became a big continent, an island continent, and things kind of began to take shape. And then we all discovered Sereth.
So this world that you guys were all running in together, is that what later became the world you're working on now, or was that something else?
No, that's all the same world.
Okay.
It's all, everything that they created is incorporated into that.
Very cool. So how long have you guys been working on this world?
I think it's been about 2 years.
Awesome.
Give or take. So it's slowly come to life. I finally made some maps beyond our small region, and I'm a perfectionist when it comes to the maps because I keep redoing them. I have like 4 or 5 different versions of the maps. Each one getting a little bit better, a little bit more intricate, and adding stuff as we go. Like every time you guys find a new spot or decide you want to go somewhere else, then I'll add landmarks to it and that sort.
Cool. Yeah. And you make really great maps, and you're an illustrator in the real world, right? So
yeah, amateur part-time. Yeah. I dabble. It's become more of a hobby than anything else, but that's my first love.
Cool. Yeah. Well, yeah, you've made some really, really cool maps, and definitely helps to kind of see our little corner of the world and what's around, and get our bearings and see places we want to go and stuff like that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I myself am very visual and very not tactile, but the sounds, the descriptions, the visual cues, all of that kind of help me put myself in the place wherever we are.
Yeah.
So I try to do as much of that as possible for everybody else.
Awesome. Brett is the DM in a campaign I'm playing in, and have been playing in for a while now. I don't even know how long. Maybe almost a year, maybe?
I think it might be, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I was level 8 when I started with you guys, or maybe 7.
Yeah, it was close to 7 or 8. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and we're 13 now. So
right.
And yeah, we try to play once a week. So yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, with the occasional month and a half off.
Yeah. So you're running 5th edition D&D, and I played in your game for a while, and you're also running now higher level content than I've run in 5th edition.
Mm-hmm.
And you run in your own world that you've created. So I thought it'd be fun to have you on the show and talk with you about, just your campaign and your world, and any GMing war stories or playing war stories, just whatever comes up.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. So many stories.
Yeah. So since I didn't come in the campaign at the beginning, we were, I don't know. Now I'm wondering if maybe we weren't as high as level 8 when I joined, but
I didn't think I thought maybe you were closer to 5, but
okay.
But I could be wrong. It could be wrong.
It might've been 5. So how long were you guys playing before I came in and crashed the party?
We must have been playing for maybe I want to say close to a year. It's hard for me to gauge distance of time.
Yeah.
It was a little while. It was a nice little clip. We were able to get together most weeks, playing every Sunday afternoon, and it started out, as I was saying, we began kind of with the 3 of us taking a story from this brand new world that we each had a hand in creating, and just taking little snippets of stories to carry the characters forward. No real set motive or goal, end game. It was more just to level the characters up and just have the experience of playing again, because we had, before this, we'd actually not played together for, let's see, my daughter's 16, so about 17 years.
You guys grew up together, right? Is that right? Or went to high school together or something like that?
Yeah, Andy and I went to high school together, and then we met Terry after high school.
Okay.
And hung out afterward.
Cool.
Yeah, so we've known each other for quite a while.
And you and I met through my wife, Nikki, actually
Yeah, we
you
were
guys
coworkers.
you guys were coworkers. And yeah. I didn't even know, I don't know how long I knew you before I knew that you even played D&D. Like, it was a while. Like, I didn't know
I
you.
think it was, yeah.
I remember one day, I think you were talking to Nikki online, and she said to me, she's like, "Hey, Brett wants to know if you want to play in his D&D game." I'm like, "He plays D&D?"
Yeah. One of the worst, best kept secrets ever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're of an age of me, so you might be a little bit. I know sometimes I am a little bit like, you're kind of in the closet about it almost.
Yeah, there's that whole. My daughter plays now. She's starting to DM and create her own things, but and she's completely open. Everybody that we're around now is completely open about it. Everything's fine. But yeah. Our generation is no, don't talk about that.
Yeah,
if you play, keep it in the background.
Yeah, there used to be like quite a nerd stigma to it back when being a nerd was not cool, and
right.
And then there was the whole, at least where I grew up in one of the more ignorant parts of the world, the whole, fear of Satan worship and all that nonsense. So yeah, it wasn't something you tended to advertise.
There was there was a little bit of that where I grew up, but that wasn't the big deal. It was still there. We heard the stories and all the urban legends and all that, but really it was more social suicide to to tell anybody that you're playing it.
Yep. Yeah, I remember in high school I used to I was in like I went to a church back in those days, and where I grew up everybody did, but we had like a group of like the kids in the church that were of high school age. I can't remember what it was called anymore. And so we would have like little get-togethers or whatever, and so I would run Star Wars. We'd have like some gathering at the church or whatever, and I'd grab some of the people and run Star Wars. And I never had the guts to try to run D&D. I was afraid I'd be excommunicated or something. But
it's funny because it's really the same thing, right? It's just sci-fi versus fantasy. Yeah.
Right. And for some reason, nobody cared about Star Wars.
Right.
If anything, you'd think Star Wars would be more threatening because it presents a different belief system. A very Eastern kind of belief system. But.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah.
We played. I actually started with a game called Rolemaster. That was my first experience role playing.
I know of Rolemaster. Wow, and you stuck with it. That was your first experience, and you stuck with it. That's
in fact, I didn't play. The funniest thing, I didn't play D&D really until like in depth playing until this last group, until the last 3 or 4 years.
Oh wow.
All before then it was, let's say I started with Rolemaster, and then we migrated to Space Master, which was like Star Wars for Rolemaster. And I think there were just like brief one-off or one-shot campaign or one-shot adventures that we did in the same group that I remember rolling a D&D character for the same group that we played Rolemaster with. This was my friend Andy and I, and we played in that group. And then everybody graduated from high school and moved on and all of that. And then when we met up with Terry, we started with mostly the sci-fi stuff, Space Master. And then we got into Star Wars and also Shadowrun. Played a lot of that back before I knew how to pronounce Puyallup. And it's all over that book, and I had no idea how to pronounce it. But that and Rolemaster were the two heaviest as far as rules go. Yeah, that really questioned my choices of games.
Yeah, I actually never played Rolemaster, but I encountered it when I was in college. A friend of mine wanted to run it, so I got some of the books, and I made a character, and I really liked that it was kind of like Elder Scrolls in that you could kind of pick and choose what you wanted your character to do. You weren't so much limited by a class.
Right.
So I made this character that was mainly an archer, but also could throw some magic and stuff too. And yeah, I think it probably took about the equivalent of 1 or 2 sessions worth of time just to make the character.
Yes. Yeah. I can't remember how many pages of character sheet there was, but
yeah.
But yeah. Oh, and that was so fun being able to. It was gratifying being able to color in the skill boxes as you go up a level. It's like, oh, I want to put 2 points in here. I want to put a half point in there. Yeah. That was gratifying. I've always liked, and I think that kind of translates into DMing. I enjoy the world building part. I like the story part, and I like the character creation of it. I used to draw all of my characters and put them on the back of the sheet and all that. I miss doing that, actually.
Yeah. Well, you could draw Kihai.
I could. I have the perfect idea of him in my brain. I just need to get him out on paper.
Yeah. So I guess I should mention you're also a player in the game I'm streaming right now, The Hidden Shrine, and you're playing a character, Kihai, who's a monk of the 4 elements. That you also played in a very early version of my Trickster's Labyrinth adventure.
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
that was a blast.
Yeah.
And well, in some cases, literally, he's a fire genasi with a bit of pyromania. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed playing him and seeing him go up in levels. I haven't had a chance to play at higher levels. Everything seems to, we begin a new campaign, and of course I haven't played in so long that when we started this this new group or this new batch in the last few years, we started out at first level and then just progressed up. And so now that I'm DMing, I guess in some ways I'm having the opportunity to play at higher levels against you guys, but
yeah,
that's like my number one rule is I don't want to play against you guys. I'm actually rooting for you guys to get through this.
Yeah.
But and every once in a while trying to kill you, but that's not the point. The point is to get through the plot.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually haven't played or run. Well, I guess I played some high level because my character in your game is 13th level now. But that's definitely the highest I played, and the highest I've run I think is 8th. And
okay,
I've run a lot of 5th edition. Like I've been running it almost constantly since I started playing it. But my problem is I've been falling victim partly, I think, to the new shiny phenomenon.
Yeah.
Every time they put out a new adventure path, I'm like, oh, I want to run that,
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think part of it is also just I just don't know if I have it in me to run these like 15 level adventure paths, because looking back on like my GMing history, the only time I've ever run campaigns that lasted like a long time, like years, was when I was running my own stuff. And
right.
When I run someone else's stuff, I tend to get bored with it. And if it's just like a single module, like I can usually get through it, and I'm kind of getting bored with it by the end, but I can get through it. But when it's like 15 levels worth of stuff, it's like Tyranny of Dragons, we got like halfway through it and I was just so sick of it. I'm like, I can't do this for another 9 months.
Oh no. Yeah, it's well, there's something to it also when you're invested, when you have ideas and you haven't completely fleshed them out, but they're out there and they're things that you want to do, and you're trying to carry that story forward.
Yeah.
Much different than having the adventure in front of you, knowing how it's going to end, and
right,
trying to slog. I don't want to say slog because I enjoy the adventures too, but basically trying to slog through all the content to get to the master goal, right?
Yeah. So speaking of slogs, I want to ask you: is Hidden Shrine a slog yet?
We went through a slog, didn't we? Was that where that tree was?
Yeah.
It's a dungeon crawl. It's like the penultimate idea of an old era. Can I say old era?
Yeah.
Since that's my era.
Yeah.
Like an old era D&D game where you're going from room to room and not sure, whether you're going to pass something or anything like that. So yeah, it's a different kind of game.
But is it a slog? See, I think it is by the way you're evading the question. I think you just still want to hurt my feelings. I didn't write it, man. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
I know. No, I don't think it's a slog.
It's really long though, right?
It's incredibly long. It's we've like played, this last session. I ended with a little sarcastic joke saying, "Look how far we got." But
yeah, you guys got through one room.
I know.
We've played what eight sessions now.
Yeah,
and I'd say at this point you guys are over halfway through it, but just barely.
Okay. I think you said that like 4 sessions ago too, though.
Yeah, well, it's hard to tell. Because it kind of depends. Are you going to go investigate every single room or not? Which it kind of seems like you guys are.
Yeah. Well, and it also seemed from the player's perspective, we don't know what we're not seeing, right? So
right.
So we don't know if we're going to pass a door that we actually need to go through.
Right.
So we kind of do have to open every door that we come across just to make sure it's not the direction we're supposed to go. But.
Yeah.
But that's like the whole premise of a dungeon crawl is like exploring this whole, and we're as characters, we're charged with kind of mapping this whole area and finding treasure and bringing that back to Alondria. So
yeah,
I think we kind of have that in mind also as we're going through and collecting things.
Yeah.
So that could, by its own nature, slow us down a little bit, but I don't think it stopped the fun at all.
Well, that's good. Yeah, it's a huge dungeon, and then there are so many rooms like the one you guys encountered this last time, where it's like really this room is going to eat up the whole session because there's so much going on, and it's. I really like the flavor in the adventure. Like, there's no just you find 5 gold pieces and a rusty dagger, all of the treasure you find is very flavorful, and it's like this very kind of Aztec flavored treasure with lots of jade and obsidian and stuff like that. So that's really cool. But I mean, just like after an encounter, just going through the treasure can take like almost half an hour sometimes because there's so much stuff to describe to you guys and then deciding who's going to take what. And
true. That's true.
Well, I'm glad it's not a slog.
No,
I was wondering.
I will confirm. No, not to us, or not to me anyway. Playing, It doesn't seem to be. I'm excited to go into the next room and once again avoid dying.
Yeah,
for just a little while longer.
Yeah, because I really wanted to run Dead and Thay, which is another adventure in that book. But it makes Hidden Shrine look like a little kiddie playground. Like, it's huge.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I've been wondering, I'm like, do I really want to do Dead and Thay? Because this dungeon seems crazy long to me. It's like it's going to take us like 3 or 4 months to get through it. It's like, do I really want to do something that's even bigger? But
so because I didn't want to skip ahead. I didn't buy the book. Are all of the adventures kind of dungeon crawlish?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, okay. They are all dungeons. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's another thing I've wondered is, they present the idea of running all these back to back as a campaign. And I just don't I wouldn't want to do that. It's too many dungeon crawls in a row. It's too much of the same thing,
Right. The only dungeon crawls are fun in their own right. The one thing that I miss when I do a dungeon crawl is the chance to role play a little deeper.
Yeah.
Because we're going from room to room, there's not very much opportunity to kick into everybody's backstories or
Right.
or act out your characters or anything like that. So I do miss that a little bit, but but it's like I said, it's a different game. It's not better or worse. It's a different type.
Yeah, and Hidden Shrine, there's not a lot of NPCs to interact with, and a lot of the ones that you can interact with don't speak common,
and they try to kill you.
Yeah, and they speak this ancient language that no one speaks unless they use magic, So yeah, now the Dead and Thay adventure is a massive dungeon crawl, but that is filled with role playing opportunities.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's well, actually, I can tell you because if I run it, I'm going to completely change it. It as presented, it's a facility run by the Red Wizards of Thay. So there are lots of monsters and things in it, but there are also lots of people and NPCs that you can interact with, and some of them are friendly and some of them not.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I definitely think if you're gonna do like a mega dungeon, something that you're gonna be in more than like 2 or 3 sessions, that it's really good to have that role playing possibility in there, because just kicking in doors and killing things and taking their stuff can get old after a few months,
Yeah, you need a little bit more interaction.
Yeah.
I actually think we started that, especially Phoebe's character, Zila, and Jaime's character, Derek, has been doing that a lot. They've gotten really good in their banter back and forth.
Yes.
And just doing it amongst ourselves. We don't have any NPCs to interact with. And
right. Yeah.
So just carrying on amongst ourselves is working out well.
Yeah, that's fun. Sometimes I wonder if maybe I should have left my NPC in the party so I'd have someone to play with it. He'd seem kind of redundant.
Yeah. But now we don't have now Casey's character is gone.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this in my next campaign, because I like dungeon crawls, but I think there's kind of a sweet spot as far as how long it is. So I think for my next campaign, I'm going to, because it's going to be more of a West Marches kind of thing. I'm going to sprinkle some dungeons around the map, but they're going to be smaller, something that you could get through in 1 or 2 sessions.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And then that way you can go in, you can kind of have the dungeon crawl experience, but you're not like in there forever.
Right. Well, and like you were saying about the West Marches concept, you kind of have to make them small so that you can get back to the end point by the end of the session, right? Yeah, that's a good point. So I was curious because to me, from the GM perspective, it feels like it could very easily be a slog, and I'm to the point where I'm like watching the players very carefully to try to figure out, are they bored? Are they enjoying this? Because I'm getting concerned that this is going on too long. So it's always interesting to hear what a player thinks, because it's a different perspective, Turnabout is fair play, Lex.
Yeah.
How have you enjoyed our little spiel through Terindal?
Yeah, I've enjoyed it more and more.
Oh, good.
Like as time goes on, because when we started, you guys have been playing for a while, and so you guys had some campaign history, and the characters had history together, and also my character is a dwarf, and I'm the only dwarf in the party, and we're in kind of a human part of the world, like we're not in the dwarven kingdom. So in the beginning, it was kind of like I felt like a lot of times like I was just kind of along for the ride. Like I didn't really understand all of the context of what we were doing or why we were doing what we were doing or who all these people were. I was just kind of like, oh, hey, I get along with these guys and they get into fights a lot. Like my character had motivation to be there, but it was pretty shallow. It didn't go very deep. And we've talked about this before. Like I don't know if you planned this or not, but you did something really cool where you had because you've done like kind of shorter campaign arcs. So we'd finished the arc that we were on when I joined, that you guys were kind of in the middle of. And then when we started the next one, we'd had kind of some downtime, and you had my character meet the queen of this human city, Sereth, that we've been adventuring around. And that was really cool because I felt like I role played it like he was really impressed with her because my dwarf has a thing for tall women, which, when you're a dwarf, let's face it, that's most of the women out there.
That's just really, about everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Opens things up for you a lot. Right. And he also has a thing for women in power, which I don't know if is something I've really mentioned or role-played.
I don't think that's come out. No,
but I just always kind of had this idea that like he would be very impressed with like a powerful woman, whether she were like a queen or like a powerful warrior or whatever. So he meets this human woman. She's really tall. She's a queen. He was pretty impressed with her. And so I kind of use that as like kind of his like, okay, now he kind of has a stake in this, because the next arc was about a group that were trying to overthrow the queen. We eventually found out. And so when we found that out, my character Keldor was all like, he was very motivated to stop them. And sometimes I actually felt like he was more motivated than the other player characters seemed to be. Like they were just kind of like, whatever. And he's like, no, we must stop this, affront to the queen, blah, 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 blah. And so that was, that was really cool. And at that point, like, I'd say really once that second campaign started, I mean, I was having fun before then, but that's when I felt like I really, I don't know, had like real, like I was really hooked into the story. And also cool. it helped because I was there for the whole thing. The first one, there was a lot of stuff that had happened before I was there that the other characters told me about, but I wasn't really there for. So, I was just kind of like, yeah, I'll kill this guy because he told me to, but I don't really understand why we hate him so much.
True. Well, it's funny because when you came in, they had just completed a fairly large story arc where they had prevented. It was called I called that whole campaign the rise of the Demonaris. She was basically a Cambion who was trapped in a pocket dimension or a pocket plane. And she was trying to return. She was the heir of this kind of ambiguous historical figure who had once ruled the world and was overthrown. He himself was a demon, and so she had tried to break back into the material plane, and they had been able to stop that. And so they were just coming back from that when Keldor shows up.
Yeah,
and that's actually who was chasing them, was the goblin horde that attacked Westbridge with the hill giant, and that was your first experience with them. And so actually it's funny that you say you kind of felt disjointed from them, because Terry's character also came in at that point. So from a character's perspective, he had really as much invested interest as Keldor did at that moment.
Yeah. Meaning
very little. But it gradually grew. It actually got to the point where, as you were talking about Keldor's investment in the goal of this last campaign of stopping this particular bad guy from overthrowing the government, from overthrowing the queen. You had that, or Keldor had that motivation, and then Terry's character Baden had his own motivation, and then Andy's character Drusk had his own motivation attached to it, and they all they came from different plot points, really.
Yeah. So Terry's character Baden, who's a wizard, was a member of this mage organization, and I don't remember all the details now, but in the first campaign, he'd gotten in some trouble. He basically like went AWOL. Like,
right. That was actually his backstory. We've never played that out.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And so he was in trouble with them, and to kind of get in their good graces again, they sent him on this mission to investigate this stuff that eventually ended up being this plot to overthrow the queen. And ironically, the person who sent him to investigate this turned out to be the person who was trying to overthrow the queen. So yeah, I don't think I knew Andy was hired.
He played it close to the cuff. Yeah.
He was hired by like a mercenary group to kill somebody, right? Or something like that.
By basically, essentially an assassin's guild. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how much of the story I can reveal. I think everybody knows that he's become a part of them. I hope.
Yeah,
if not, they do when they hear this.
Yeah, I think we knew that.
Yeah. So he got into their good graces, or assumed, because I don't think it was ever. And so he was given a contract when he reported in that he was going to follow Baden up north. The leader of this organization gave him this contract to assassinate this particular person while he's up there. So he takes the contract, and you guys travel up, and it just so happens to be one of the people that you're supposed to be interacting with. And
yeah,
it all kind of, it rolled together really nicely. It worked well in my brain. I have no idea how it looked, but I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. And now it's coming back to me more. So I remember that my character's main motivation at the beginning of that was to help his friend clear his name, basically.
Right.
But it wasn't a super strong motivation, because I mean, Baden's an elf, and he's a very elfy elf. So
yes,
Baden and Keldor are very much like Gimli and Legolas before they decide they like each other. Okay.
Right.
It's very much like they make jibes at each other, and they're definitely not like drinking buddies yet or anything like that.
Right.
So it was, for Keldor, it was more of a thing of honor than like a personal, like, oh, this is my best friend and I'm going to help him. It was more like, he's my comrade in arms, and, we stick together, and no man left behind, blah, 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 blah. And it was getting very political. And it was all human politics. And I remember in the beginning of the campaign, like sometimes Baden would be having these really in-depth political conversations with NPCs. And I would just kind of start like tuning out. And I would be like, oh, wait, I should pay attention. But then I'd be like, well, I don't really think Keldor would be paying attention right now.
He would probably be tuning out.
Yeah. Like he doesn't really care about human politics. And he's just like wants to hit something, like, But then when he found out that these people were plotting against the queen, who he'd met and admired, then suddenly he cared about the politics, and then he wanted to pay attention to those conversations and try to, because a lot of it was like we never really knew what was going on, so a lot of it was talking to different NPCs and seeing, trying to find discrepancies between what different people were telling us, and trying to figure out who was lying to us and who was telling us the truth and what was really going on. And so I think it was probably definitely beneficial to the group that me and Keldor at some point started actually paying attention to all that. Because I remember like the session where all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, this person told us this and this person told us that, and suddenly I'm like, we got to figure this out. And Baden's like, yeah, I've been saying that for weeks. Where have you been?
Yeah. Well, as from the DM's perspective, first of all, I have to stop reading spy books. Second, I think I'm done with political intrigue for a while. That was so, I had so many notes going back and forth of who knows what, who is hiding what, and it was so fun to do, but wow, it was a headache. It was a real headache.
Oh, well, that's interesting, because that's definitely one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because That was one of the most political games I've played in.
Yeah.
And definitely the most political D&D game I played in. Probably the other political games I played in were like Vampire and Changeling.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Which really lent themselves to that kind of thing. And I've definitely never run anything like that. So I thought you pulled it off really well. It was very Games of Thronesian in a way. Only people aren't quite as evil in your world as they are in Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
or at least not all of them are.
I might not. I might just not have it in me. I'll have to work on that.
I mean, you have evil people, but it's not like every person out there is out to get you. You know,
everybody's got a motive. Yeah,
everybody's going to stab you in the back when you're not looking. So yeah, I'm really curious to talk about that, and it's interesting that now you're saying you're not in a hurry to do another one.
Yeah, well, it's hard to keep up because it's not just from the standpoint of keeping all the facts straight and essentially running a murder mystery without the murder. It's hard to work things backwards and plan that far ahead in such a sandbox kind of environment where you guys could decide to go anywhere at any time.
Yeah.
You could have at any point in that story, you could have said, you know what? I'm done. I'm going back to Sareth. This isn't worth it. Thankfully you didn't. And hopefully you got some cool stuff from it. But it actually it segued so well, I think, into especially how you played Keldor and gaining favor with the angel that you had summoned. It pretty much lent itself to a plot point for the next campaign.
Yeah.
So it was very easy for me to kind of move forward into the next story. In my head, all of this is one story. The story of you guys in Terindal is the name of this continent that we're all on. It's one story, and you've experienced the first few bits of it. There is kind of everything that's happening now and everything that you guys went through is leading to other things.
Oh, cool.
So it's all tied together.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way to me. Like, you kind of set these points where you're like, okay, this is the end of an arc. Right. But it definitely feels like it's all one big story. So I imagine part of the hard part is remembering what all the different NPCs have told us and not told us and what was true. And well, I'm sure you know what's true and what's not, but just remembering what lies they've all told.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And some of the lies become truths and it's a little tough to follow, but yeah, I've been using OneNote, and I have just tab after tab after tab of NPCs and plot points and things that were said, things that weren't said, some things that just never came up in conversation, not necessarily that you miss, but just things that never came up or never were discussed with the group or with other NPCs or anything like that. So that's kind of cool having that reservoir of knowledge for potential later plot points or little gotchas here and there that may or may not come up. But yeah, it's kind of developing that story was by far the most difficult that I've experienced. And seeing it through all the way, I'm glad we didn't bail on it at all. I was happy to see it come to the end.
Yeah, so I'm curious, when you were planning the campaign, did you set out to create a very political campaign, or did it just kind of happen?
I did. I actually, yeah, it came from this particular campaign was really put together by the backstory that Terry wrote for his character Baden. Okay. When you guys came back from the last adventure before this, there was you guys were jumping back and forth between portals in this particular period of time in the autumn. It's called the autumn fall in this world, where planes of existence kind of collapse in on themselves, and portals to other planes pop up at random points, not unlike a certain other place that you might be aware of. Sorry. But it's like this, where these portals open up from like this pocket shadow plane. And so you guys had gone through there to once again thwart this demon heiress from her relative, to prevent her relative from bringing her back. And in fleeing from that, you were deposited through this portal into this onto the material plane that was under the protection of the guards of Sereth, the capital of the province, and mages from the Mage Corps, where Baden was from. All of these different people were guarding these holes to pocket dimensions or pocket planes. And as you guys pop out, everybody's expecting this horrible creature to come through, and they are greeted by you guys, or you guys are greeted by them. And the magicians or the mages there, the wizards, recognized Baden. They knew him from his past, and they knew that he had gone AWOL from their ranks. And so they arrested him and teleported him away and left you guys there in the middle of nowhere. And so that kind of brought us into the next campaign, where that I had to think of a way to not send Baden off to prison, because I know Terry wanted to play him for a while. And so from that came this idea of, well, he has to make amends. The Mage Corps doesn't want him, because they have heard of all of the things that you've done, that your group has done, to kind of protect the area, protect the world from these portals going back to the demon heiress. And so they think he's too politically powerful with his family and his heroic deeds to be brought into the fold of what the Archmage is planning to do, which was overthrow the queen and take over Sereth and the province. And ultimately he wanted to take over the entire continent and just spread his power across. So this was the beginning of that whole plan of his. However, to do that, he had to get you guys out of Sereth, away from the queen, away from any influence that Baden may have, and take with him the people who have helped him do everything that he's done, meaning you guys. And so that led to, well, if he's sending him away, is he sending him away just to keep him occupied so that he can come back and defeat him later, or is he sending him to kill him?
Yeah.
And he can't outwardly do anything there in Sereth because of their popularity, because of the character's popularity. And so he has to send them away and basically send them to a trap.
Yeah. It's a trap!
With a giant squid head at the far end.
This is Mike Shalai, and you're listening to Game Master's Journey.
I'd like to take a minute to give a quick shout out to the patrons of Starwalker Studios. The support of the patrons makes this show possible. If you enjoy Game Master's Journey and you'd like to give a little back, becoming a patron is a great way to do so. It's because of the patrons that all listeners of Game Master's Journey enjoy a special bonus episode every month, as well as a Game Master's Journey live stream. I would also like to give a huge shout out and thank you to my Tier 5 patron, Steve. Let's hear it for Steve. Yeah.
Yes.
The man. Thank you so much, Steve. And thank you to all the patrons. You can find out more about becoming a patron by clicking on the Patreon button at the top of the show notes at starwalkerstudios.com. say, this has all brought something to my mind. I've got to give you props. I feel like through this entire campaign or all the campaigns, because you mentioned how, at any point we could just up and, decide to do something completely random. Mm-hmm. I feel like you've done a really good job of kind of keeping us going, I assume, in the direction you want us to go, without it feeling like we're being, quote, railroaded,
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Like whatever that even means.
No, thank you. That's a huge compliment. I don't like that kind of a story arc with the players because it's not fun as a player. I've played games like that where, well, I don't really want to do that, but this is where everybody's going, so I guess I'll continue.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of fun.
I feel like there's a lot of debate about railroading versus not, and I feel like I don't think any GM goes out to railroad the players. I don't think railroading is a strategy that people are trying to employ. I think railroading is what happens when an inexperienced or an unskilled GM is just being too ham-fisted, because to me, everything comes down to character motivation, and it's the same as in a movie or a book or anything else. When a character does something, you've got to be able to explain why they did that.
Right.
Right. It's like Luke leaves Tatooine to learn about the Force and follow in the footsteps of his father and save Princess Leia. It's like, it makes sense. Like, we can understand why Luke is doing that. Like it makes sense, and it's not like Luke is being railroaded. Like the GM's like, Luke, you must go to Alderaan and there's nothing you can do. It's like, no, the GM is creating a situation where, the character's motivations are going to point him in the direction that the GM wants him to go, and,
right.
And when it's done right, there's never any sense of railroading. It's like, at any time Keldor could be like, screw it, I'm going to the nearest harem, I'm getting drunk, and I'm going to party, and
right.
He could do that, but he doesn't because, he's worried about the queen and what's going on and he wants to stop it. And because of that, he's wanting to do the next thing, which is probably the next thing that you're planning for us to do, like kind of following that trail of breadcrumbs,
Right. Well, yeah. And I kind of feel like, with this, so at the end of this last campaign, you employed the the services of an angel.
Yes.
And the price, do you remember what the price was?
Yeah, the price is, and this is a perfect example of this. So I used the what was it, like the planar ally spell. It's like a 6th level cleric spell to summon an angel to help us defeat this archmage. And I was all, they give a system for, you pay this much gold per hour or whatever for the angel service. And I was prepared to do that, but I would have very quickly run out of money because Keldor doesn't have a lot of money, at least not on his person. I guess we have access to a lot of money, but we haven't collected it.
You still haven't collected it.
Yeah.
I am waiting for somebody to go and collect it. Yeah. And just a side note really quick. I always thought that was weird that an angel would ask for cash.
I know, right?
But I'm like, okay.
I guess they were thinking of like the modern church where they always want you to give donations,
Right.
They're like, put your money in the plate. So and that's another thing, like as someone who spends most of their time GMing, like I like as soon as I got that spell, I was like, Brett, I'm going to be using this spell. Basically the first chance I get, I'm going to use it. So just FYI, if you want to come up with an angel or whatever ahead of time, or think about, what he's going to want from me, cause I didn't want to just blindside you with it. But yeah, so his, he was basically, the angel appears and he's like, what do you want me to do? And I told him, and he's like, okay, we should discuss the terms. And Keldor was,
you did something completely unexpected. Yeah. I did not expect you to do that.
I think Keldor, I don't remember if I suggested or he suggested it, but we were basically like, we'll settle that later.
Yeah.
I just left it. I'm like, well, once we're done, then we can figure out what I owe you. And Baden's like face palming, like, what are you doing? You know? But Keldor was like, hey, this is an agent of my God. You know, he's, you know, it's not like I'm going to barter with this guy anyway. I'm going to basically do what he asked me to do anyway. So
sure.
Who cares, you know? So when everything's said and done, the angel wants me to go to this other city, Sidrine, and establish a temple there.
Right.
Which is, you know, again, is an excellent hook, I assume, to another adventure because, you know, as a DM, you can be pretty certain that that's going to be something I'm going to want to do, you know?
Right. And to kind of get rid of that concept of railroading, he didn't set a time limit. So it's not you have to go here now. You're needed
right
this moment.
Right.
It's just something that needs to get done.
And, you know, I am kind of putting it off a little bit because like we just got to keep. And so we're working on securing that.
Right.
But I'm also thinking, you know, if I'm in a situation where I need to summon this guy again and I haven't done this yet, you know, like what's going to, you know, like I kind of, you know, even though there isn't really a hard time limit, I still want to get it done soon because it's like, well, I'm probably going to need this guy's help again in the future.
Yeah.
So,
and you don't know if that is going to affect the interaction or.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the next time I summon him, I at least want to be able to say, hey, I've done these things towards that. You know, maybe I haven't achieved it yet, but I've taken some steps instead of being like, oh yeah, I haven't gotten around to that yet.
Right.
Just not really a priority for me, you know?
Oh, it's next Monday. No, I'm going next Monday. Don't worry about it.
Because last thing I want is like the celestial leg breakers coming after me. You know?
Oh no.
Pay up, dwarf.
They break your legs in all sorts of ways.
Yeah, that's right.
No, so yeah, that's from my perspective, that kind of felt like railroading. So I'm glad it didn't feel like that.
No, not at all. And see, that's the problem I have with this whole railroading thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is I think I worry that there are DMs out there who are doing something like what you did. That's totally cool, but they're worried about, oh, is this railroading when they don't need to be? You know, I mean, to me, railroading it's all about the technique.
Well, it's about the technique and the desire, right? I mean, ultimately, we're all playing a game. It's not if it's not fun to anybody, or if it's not fun to one person, then maybe there's a way to make it more enticing for that individual, or there's something else that you can do as a group that everybody will enjoy. It's not. I never. When I DM'd when I was younger, before kids, before marriage, when I was just an only child, my DMing skills were very shallow. Is that a good word for it? Narrow-minded. I didn't. If things didn't go the way I had planned, I got frustrated. I felt like the game was falling apart. I wasn't enjoying it, therefore nobody else was enjoying it. And I remember getting so mad so many different times just because the game wasn't working. It wasn't working the way I wanted it to work. Thankfully, I grew up and I don't act that way anymore. And I don't feel that way anymore. It's now more of a just all the different shit that everybody comes up with at different points just makes it so much more fun. It forces you to think on your feet and ad lib. And there was going back into our story of Terindal really quick, there was a point where you guys had come back. I think it was right after you guys had dropped off some criminals and then they escaped and then you had to catch them and kill them. But it was after that point, and you guys had left this guild hall, and somebody, kind of carrying on what the next story arc was going to be, somebody was across the street watching you guys as you were coming out. And Drusk, Andy's character, rolled an incredible perception roll, and he saw him. I shouldn't have. Well, the old me would not have made him make that perception roll because I didn't want him to see him.
Yeah.
But he saw him, so I'm like, okay, so he'll see him, and then so the guy's going to take off because he's not going to combat this guy. That's not his job. His job is to spy on him. So he realizes he's, the jig's up. So he takes off down the street, and he says, "Well, I take off after him." I'm like, "Oh shit, okay." So we give chase after. Baden takes off after one. Drusk takes off after another. You're pulled off to the side by somebody that you know, saying, "Hey, just to so you know, that half orc that you're with, people are looking for him." And so now you've got a piece of the puzzle, and Drusk is chasing down another piece of the puzzle, and Baden's chasing down another piece of the puzzle, and they wind up, Baden takes off into this secret room, and this under level of the city turns out to be this Assassin's Guild. All of that was ad-libbed.
Wow.
I had so much fun doing it, and it was very clearly, it was very theater of the mind. I had no maps. I had really nothing to go on except for the basic map of Sereth that we had. And I knew the Assassin's Guild was there, and I had the stats for them. I had all of that put together, but I wasn't planning any kind of interaction. But from that one little tidbit, from that one little ad-libbed piece, you now have a half-orc member of the party who's actually a secret member of this secret society, and gaining prominence in that society, and kind of guiding his own path on what he has to do now too. So it really it's amazing what you guys come up with.
Yeah, and that's a great example of like just taking what happens and figuring out, like, how do I use this, or how do I turn this to my advantage, or how do I use this to further this story I'm trying to tell? How can I tie this back into what I'm doing? This like totally random thing that just happened, You just made me think of another benefit to theater of the mind.
What's that?
Well, if you're using maps and stuff, it's always a huge giveaway when you've got like your battle map already, right? And if suddenly something happens and the GM's like, "Oh, I don't have a map for this," like you suddenly know that this is something that wasn't planned. Where theater of the mind, you don't have that tell.
That's very true. Yeah, that's an excellent point.
So, as far as the railroading, to me, I think for like GMs that are worried about it, I think there are just like some big no-nos. And as long as you avoid those, like, I think you're going to be okay. Like one of them is you can't do that.
Yes.
When I'm like, I want to, screw this, I'm going back to Sereth, and the DM's like, you can't do that. Like, that's railroading. That's
railroading. Yeah. It kills a game really fast to do that. It kills the enjoyment for everybody.
It's better to let me do it and then have a bunch of orcs jump me and beat me up.
Yeah, totally. Sure, you can head back to Sereth. I can't guarantee you're going to get there. But
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's I think really that's a big thing is like when the player wants to do something, you let them do it. And if you need to, you kind of guide them back where you need them to be. And considering as a GM, you literally control everything in the universe. You can figure out a way to do that without being like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, it's you hear so many on your podcast. You've said this countless times, and on hearing all the folks on Twitch and D&D, everybody saying that it's the number one. The word escaped me. The best thing to have, the best tool to have in your belt as a DM is the ability to ad-lib and say, yes, you can do that.
Yeah.
Or yes, you can try that. Or it's the improv technique, the yes and technique. It's like, yeah, sure, you can give it a try. And let the dice make the decision, maybe make the DC extraordinarily high. or even if it's not possible, let them give it a shot. Let them fail. Let them, if it's, you can't walk on a ceiling if you don't have a spell to do that. You can't there's some things that you physically can't do, but you can try.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think the other thing as far as like avoiding railroading is just try to avoid a situation that's going to lead to a player saying something like, oh, well, we should go do this because this is obviously what the GM wants us to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which again, if you focus on character motivations like that won't happen.
True.
Because they're going to be all into like what their character wants to do, whatever that is.
Right.
So, yeah. So I don't know. I think we worry about it more than we need to because there's just so much talk about it. Like it's this horribly hard thing to avoid, which I really don't think it is.
No. So would you say railroading is more of a symptom than an actual issue? It's a symptom of a larger fault, I guess. That's not the right word because that makes it sound bad too. But a particular way of playing that creates that kind of environment, not necessarily that the story itself is a railroaded story where you have no choice but to go here. It's more the way you're playing the game.
Yeah, I think it's more how you're doing what you're doing than what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the idea, like, and I really believe this. I believe that you could go up to any person and say almost anything to them and have them be receptive to that. You just have to know the right way to say it.
True.
You know,
sure.
like I could go up to you and be like, you know, Brett, I really think in a lot of situations you're a real asshole, you know? And
like, yeah, I can see that.
And I mean, I don't think that, but I mean, I could say that to you and theoretically, at least I could find a way to say that where you would like receive the message and not get angry or, you know, like you'd be like, oh yeah, you're right. Sometimes I am an asshole. You know, it's all like how you do it, you know?
Right. Or give you that thought like, oh crap, well, what am I doing? And you know, that kind of sparks that whole conversation. But
yeah, so I think like GMA could run a given storyline and it could feel super railroady, like the players have no agency whatsoever. And GMB could do the exact same story and the players would swear that they chose every step along the way and it was all their idea. And it's the same thing. It's just like how they do it. It's like finesse or lack of finesse. So
yeah, I agree.
It's like, how do I get the players to do this and make them think it's their own idea?
Yes. That's the best. Or when Terry paid me an incredible compliment at the end of one of the sessions. We hadn't played for a little while before this last one, but one of the past sessions at the end, he's like, "Did we throw you off? Were you expecting that one still, or because you guys had gone a different way than I think you guys had talked about at first?"
Yeah, was that when we went to the keep?
Which keep? To
our keep that we are taking over.
Oh, to your keep. Oh no.
Oh, okay. Because I was wondering about
that.
I was like, I wonder if he was ready for this because we kind of hemmed and hawed, and it seemed like at the beginning of the session, like we were going to go down south, and then all of a sudden we're like, no, let's go to our keep. And I'm like, man, I really hope Brett wasn't all prepared for the other thing, and now he's like scrambling, trying to figure out what's going on at this keep.
Like, hang on, the ink's not dry. Wait. Yeah, well, and I even gave away the fact that I don't have the map completely fleshed out for the top floors, but I at least had the parts that you guys investigated.
Yeah, I mean, you've kept us busy like 2 sessions in that keep now. So
I know. I thought that was going to be a one shot, but yeah, you guys had a lot of fun in that, I hope.
Yeah. So we as part of kind of the wrap up of the last campaign and kind of solidifying the Queen's rule, at least for now, we were given the estate of one of the guys that we killed.
You were given the estate of the man who Drusk was hired to assassinate.
Yeah, how great is that?
And it was just awesome, and it worked out because he actually turned out to be one of the key bad guys looking for the Archmage up in the north. So yeah, so that worked out well.
So yeah, you know, kind of back to your question way back when you were asking like, I don't even remember what you asked, but something about like how engaged I was with the campaign or whatever. Like,
Oh yeah.
like, you know, it's just like more and more, because it's like now we have this keep and we're figuring out how we're going to staff it and what we're going to do with it. Keldor's thinking about building a brewery and a temple, and then building this other temple in this other city. And like that's the kind of stuff that like I'm really excited for, kind of the more mid to high level play stuff where it's like now we get to kind of make our mark on the world and kind of.
Yeah, I was going to say that kind of segues nicely into your question about running a higher tier game too, right?
Yeah.
Because this is the first time either as a player or as a DM where I've been involved in any kind of stronghold or followers or anything like that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Me too.
It's the kind of thing that it's one of those perks that you get when you're at higher level that you don't get to when you drop off at 5th level or 6th level.
Right.
And it just the encounters become more deadly and more creative. The rewards become exorbitant. the you get the keep. You've got you don't have a magic carpet. I'm surprised. You do have a flying broom though.
We do. A magic carpet would be awesome though, because we could all ride on it. Like if we got the really big one.
I don't know. Keldor with that armor. I don't know if you'd fit. It's too heavy.
Oh, I need flying armor. That's what I need. I just need to enchant my armor so it can make me fly. That'd be great.
Oh, there you go.
I'll be like That'll Iron work. Man, like fantasy style.
And get some lightning out of the boots. You're all set. But yeah, I think that's one of the greatest internal rewards for me as a DM is being able to provide all of that, all the fun, creative, cool stuff at the higher levels. It's much more dangerous, much more deadly. The chance of a one shot is getting closer and closer to reality. But at the same time, the rewards are greater. There's more you have. There's more you can do. There's more as characters. You have a chance to become more of the world itself. And like you said, have more of an impact on the world around you.
Yeah, I mean, we might end up with our own little. I don't know if it would be like a barony or what it would be, but our own little keep with our little the farms around it that report to us and.
Right. Well, and you guys had said when you first got the deed and the keys before you'd gone over, you guys were just kind of brainstorming at the end of one of the last sessions. You were talking about what to do and talking about the keep. And one of you, and it started this whole conversation. You guys started talking about the possibility of creating an entirely new guild of not to use the word adventure, but like this whole new guild, kind of to replace maybe even the Honor Guard, which is the guild that is currently in Sereth and is in disarray after the Archmage's fiasco. Yeah. But you guys started talking about that. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea.
Whose idea was that? I don't even remember. I don't think it was mine.
It was kind of dynamic. I think it was a combination of you and Terry. Terry might have brought it up, and then you guys kind of riffed on it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And maybe we could actually gather in some of the Honor Guard people, just kind of digest the Honor Guard into our whatever we come up with.
You'll have to name it something different.
We put the honor back in Honor Guard.
the Dishonored Guard. Yeah, so it opens up playing at higher levels and DMing at higher levels opens up quite a bit more that the characters have access to, that the DM has access to. The only drawback, the only downside is that all of the books are geared toward lower level gaming. Yeah, and so it takes more ingenuity to up the threat level of the beasties that are already there.
Yeah, you're really on your own as you get into high level.
Yeah, and that's both good and bad. It's bad in that you don't have a lot of examples to go with, but you also don't have a lot of rules. So you have the general CR guidelines and Yeah, and then it's all about making them more creative, not just heavy on hit points.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting a campaign to high level and running it in 5th edition. I ran a 3rd edition / 3.5 game that went into the 20s.
Oh yeah,
went into the epic stuff.
Oh wow.
And it was a lot of fun from like a story perspective, like playing these like truly epic characters. Well, I guess I wasn't playing them. I was the GM, but that was really cool. But the actual gameplay was fairly unfun at that high level in 3rd edition.
Yeah.
Your combats would take an entire game session and stuff like that. And it was also like it was really easy to throw something at the PCs that was way too powerful, or something that was like so easy it's not even a challenge. And I'm kind of looking forward to it with 5th, because the way it's designed, like even at high level, you can still use like kobolds and goblins, and they can still be a threat in large numbers. And it seems like in a way it almost gets easier the higher level, because you have more options, at least when it comes to what kind of monsters could I throw at them. Because when they're like level 2, you probably don't want to throw anything much higher than CR3 or 4 or 5 at them. But when they're level 13, you can throw almost anything in the book at them.
Yep, exactly.
Or large groups of things.
Yeah, large groups of small things that seem. Well, you see a horde of goblins running to you. You think, oh, this is a cakewalk. And after the 12th hit, you're like, oh shit, we got to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in all of the. It's funny looking at all the monsters that they have in the in Volo's Guide, Monster Manual, and all the different publications. All the stuff that I've played, all the stuff that I've created for the game. It's called Dungeons and Dragons. I've never introduced a dragon. I'm still not entirely positive there's a dragon on this world.
Yeah,
I haven't decided yet.
I've been wondering kind of where your setting falls in like the low fantasy, high fantasy spectrum, because a lot of times it seems, I mean, I guess it never really seems low fantasy. Like D&D just isn't. D&D is pretty high fantasy just out of the box, but like we seem to encounter a lot of humanoids, and it's been very much, a lot of times the people we're facing are actual humans, or they're elves, or or sometimes they might be like lycanthropes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like we haven't encountered like you said, like dragons or beholders, or like the really out there stuff. Although we did find a dead beholder this last week. So I guess we know they exist now.
They are here.
Yeah.
And who knows what comes through those portals in autumn fall.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, okay, of course I know exactly what you're talking about, low and high fantasy, but for those who don't, maybe give me a quick example. The difference between low and high. So low fantasy is just like historical fiction. Is that?
Yeah, I think it would be like, I mean, I haven't like researched this recently, but I would call like the early seasons of Game of Thrones like low fantasy. Like,
okay, yeah,
it's very gritty and realistic. There's very little or no magic.
Okay,
not like fantastic monsters all over the place.
And so then high fantasy would be like over the top.
Yeah. Like,
okay.
Like powerful magic and dragons and unicorns and angels and demons and all that crazy stuff.
Oh, it's hard to tell. You guys have been just by virtue of your location. It's probably, I'm going to cop out and say it's probably moderate, medium fantasy.
Yeah.
Because it has a historical context that is very high fantasy where you are right now. And historically speaking, the world is relatively new. There was a dark age before there was, let's see, you're in an era of about 2,000 years where everything is kind of settled down and people are doing great. And this particular continent has Sereth, especially where you are, is very highly integrated. Everybody lives in this capital city. Everybody gets along. There are very few people. In fact, Drusk, our half-orc, basically had his stomping ground in Sereth while he was on this continent, or while he's been on this continent, and nobody really pays him any mind. He's a half-orc, but it's not, it's not a big racial thing. He had his first interaction when you guys went up north in this last big campaign, where people started giving him funny looks and started asking him questions, and that was kind of fun to do because you guys are out of the spectrum of this well integrated city and into not out into the boondocks, but up into this region where it's more human focused or more elven focused, and you don't get a lot of people like that. The Keldor, your dwarf, didn't see that. When you guys went up north, he was still welcomed and nobody paid him any mind, and all was good. But the half-orc raised questions. So next, as you guys continue along the continent, there are other pockets where it's going to be primarily dwarven, primarily elven, other races that maybe you haven't completely interacted with yet.
Cool.
There are a couple societies tucked away in the east that haven't been that have fallen away a little bit like Cedrine has. They've kind of broken off and done their own thing and become kind of reclusive in the grand scheme of the continent. And so if you guys ever find your way out there, you may come across that kind of a situation where dwarves aren't necessarily welcome, maybe humans aren't necessarily welcome, and we'll see how that goes. But all in all, the history of the continent, it goes back about 2,000 years, and then there's this dark period where this demon lord reigned, and nobody really knows for sure what happened in that era, but they know that there was some kind of a battle that ended with his demise, and that kicked off this next era. And somehow this continent of Terindal, kind of whether by mandate or by just natural course of events, became fairly welcoming toward the populace in general. There's no direct, as far as you guys have seen so far, there's no direct hatred or violence toward other groups.
Yeah. I kind of wondered if it, because at least since I've been in the group, until very recently, we've been completely in like human controlled lands that are probably fairly tame,
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the last campaign, we went up north and we traveled through, I'm not sure if it was total wilderness or not, but we got away from the cities a bit. And then we did encounter like more monsters and stuff. So I've kind of wondered if it's maybe something where we're just in a very well patrolled land right now. And if we go out in the middle of nowhere, then things get crazy.
Right. Well, and you guys looked out too, because on this last trip, you guys were, you were sent forward by the mage corps, right? So you guys actually had a teleportation circle to get to. Right. So you skipped over a good 2 or 3 weeks of travel time to get to your destination, to at least get into that region. But even that region was still kind of wilderness.
Yeah.
So who knows what's in the middle of that? And it's there. Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but I would consider it medium fantasy. Okay. I don't want to. I don't want it to be like historical fiction or or something low end like that. I like the sparklies and the explosions and the strange beasties that pop out of nowhere.
Yeah, and honestly, if you were going to do that, I don't think D&D would be the right game to do that.
No, no, definitely not.
You'd have to be like, okay, the only classes you can play are the raging barbarian. You can't be the totem warrior.
Nope.
You can be a thief or an assassin rogue, but you can't be an arcane trickster. Like you'd have to remove like almost every class uses magic now. And,
where's the fun of that? Yeah. That was the other thing that I wanted to say. I don't like for my own DMing place, I guess for my own stories. I don't, as a player, I don't like being limited in what I can do. And so as a DM, I don't like limiting what you can do. Does that make sense?
Like as far as character creation or just what you can do in
Oh,
the
everything.
story?
And yeah, well, within the bounds of the rules, like character creation or story development, or it kind of falls back into that whole railroad versus sandbox thing. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I if you, I'm gonna jab just a little bit because it's a small jab, so don't worry. But a gnome, if you want to be a gnome, you can be a gnome. Like I said, it's a small jab. It's a very tiny jab. But it's really whatever's going to make it more enjoyable for you as a player, I'm game with. And I think that ultimately it makes my DMing more fun. It makes your game experience more fun. And that's the name of the game, so to speak.
Well, in fairness, I did remove gnomes, but I added Genasi and
I know, and thank you so much for that.
And I came up with a bunch of different types of Aasimar, and I still want to come up with more. Right now I have 9, but I think there should...
Nice.
Well, there's going to have to be more because I've come up with more gods. I have like 18 gods now. So...
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I was thinking there would be multiple Aasimar for each god because my thought is that, I mean, some of the gods might not, but at least some of the gods would have more than one type of angel that serves them. You know, so if you've got like 3 different types of angels, those would all produce different types of Aasimar, you would think. So,
yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah. So I added more than I took away, but I did finally remove the gnomes and the stout halflings.
Yeah, I understand.
I was really tempted.
I've never played a gnome. I have no idea why I'm so bent on that now.
Well, you know, it's funny because mechanically they're the only race that gets a +2 intelligence bonus.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So when I first started thinking about removing gnomes, I was really concerned about that. I made this spreadsheet where I mapped out all the races and what they get. Mm-hmm. And that's when I realized that gnomes are the only race that get the +2 to intelligence. And I was originally going to replace them with some kind of Fey race that would get the intelligence. But then I realized, I'm like, you know what? If I do that, then every min-maxer player that wants to play a wizard is going to play this fairy race that I came up with. And it's just going to be a min-max, you know, like that they're going to be the only people that play them half the time, you know? So I was like, screw it. but I still would like to, I'd like to come up with a cool like Fey race. And I'd like to come up with a cool like sentient plant race for players. I think that would be cool.
Oh, that's interesting.
And also, while I'm at it, also like some kind of insectoid race, like a thrycreen or something would be cool.
Oh yeah. Well, it seems like there are some decent examples that maybe you can bounce off of.
Yeah, but that's on the back burner. I've got so much to do to get ready for this next campaign. I got to really focus on that, or I'll never.
That's a lot of creation there.
Yeah. The biggest things now is revamping my gods, and I've mapped out like who all the gods are. I've stolen gods from mainly Greek mythology, but also Sumerian, Mesopotamian. So I've and some like Norse or Germanic deities. Yeah. So right now they're all just the name of the deity that I stole them from, but I want to come up with original names.
Sure, yeah.
And that's actually been the hardest part is
names,
coming up with names for them.
Yeah.
And then the next big thing is some kind of like an area map. Well, actually maybe 2, one for me and one for the players. So
yeah, there you go.
I do know someone that makes really good maps. But
really,
yeah. You might have heard of him, but I have to have something to give him, right? Like I have to kind of be able to say, this is what I want, right? I can't just be like, make me a map.
Better that way. Yeah. Well, if he's like the online map generators, then it should be no problem, right? It just, I want this and this, and click enter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sometimes is easier to work some details before building something like that.
Right. And I've kicked around trying to figure out how to do it myself. I've found some tutorials that make it look doable for someone without artistic talent to kind of muddle your way through. but yeah.
Well, you're married to an artist.
Yeah. That's not really like she could do it, but it's not really her thing. Like she'd have to learn like all the cartography stuff.
Oh, true.
I mean, she can use Photoshop, but as far as like,
she's better at Photoshop than I am, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like, how do you show a mountain range? How do you show topography? There's like all these things you have to learn, just cartography.
So many different choices too. You have different views, different version, or different, different ways to display it. So
I feel like in the time it would take her to learn that, I could probably learn like that tutorial I showed you. That's like very quick and dirty. Right. Making a coastline. Like I could probably come up with something, doing something like that in the time it would take her to learn what she would need to learn. And then I can do it myself, or at least have something that I could give to someone like you and say, hey, here's the general idea.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Can you run with this and make it look decent?
Right. Well, even a scratch paper, because you have it in your head, right? You have an idea of the map that you want, and just markings of, okay, this is a forest, this is a canyon or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm probably gonna rip off Washington for a lot of the topography, so that'll be easy.
I think they'll get over it.
Yeah, because I'm thinking Alondria is the equivalent of either like Bellingham or Seattle, as far as where it is on the continent.
Right.
And so it as far as like what, where the mountains are and stuff like that, like I'm just going to use Washington and kind of take some liberties here and there. Like I'm thinking I'm going to have, I don't know how well you know South America, but in South America, you have the Andes that goes all the way down the western coast, like
right,
all the way down the continent. So I think in my world, I want to have a mountain range like that, but it would actually, in our world, it would go all the way from northern Canada all the way to the tip of South America, like just one range that goes all the way down.
Sure, yeah.
So I thought that would be cool, but so far
would that be kind of like dividing the world, or
well, right now
mountain range kind of like set apart everybody on the west versus whatever might be left over from the east.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like kind of like Seattle, like Seattle's west of the Cascades, so it'd be similar with Alondria. So yeah, it'd be like on the other side of those mountains. It's like who knows what's over there, kind of thing.
Yeah, we think that a lot. No, I'm sorry, Eastern Washington.
Even today, we're like, who knows what's going on over there on the other side of the mountains.
That's right. We just don't look. That's all I know. No, I jest.
Yeah. I've played around with like hexographer and stuff. But yeah, I'm kind of at the point now where I'm still kind of generating the ideas of what's where. So I just need to get on it.
Yeah. Well, and the map, until you start playing, the map is it's more for your notes than anything else, right?
Yeah.
So until you're ready to get everything down and publishable or whatever you need to do, then that can be secondary to the actual world. Yeah.
It's just for for this West Marches thing I want to do, I kind of have to have a map where normally at this point, I wouldn't even be worried about a map. I wouldn't even worry about a map until the player's character somehow got hold of a map. And then I'd be like, oh, I guess I'd better make a map or find a map or something, but just the nature of the campaign, I want to have something to show the players.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be it could even be something that I do myself that's terrible.
Well, you could even you could just do a parchment. Well, I don't mean to say, like your stuff is terrible. I mean, it could be something basic, like something that somebody else has drawn on parchment or something like that, and work that into the story itself.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, you got it covered.
So, wow, we've gone for quite a while, and it looks we're about halfway through the stuff I was going to ask you about. So maybe this is a good place to wrap it up, and we can do a part 2 maybe next week.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good.
Because I was going to ask you more about like the campaign, like any things you thought were cool or things that we did that were really unexpected. And then I was going to ask you a bunch more about like the world building and the setting and stuff. And just like kind of your GM, philosophy or whatever. I know we've talked about that a little bit. It seems like we have similar philosophies from what we've talked about it, at least.
Yeah, and the way we've played together, it sounds like we do. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, my single philosophy: have fun.
Yeah.
God, if you're not having fun and the players aren't having fun, then there's no point doing it.
Yeah.
Move on and do something else.
And if you're not having fun as a GM, the players probably aren't having fun either.
Exactly. That is going to translate into the whole game. So, oh my gosh, I've got stories of. It's funny. Some of the best stories I have were we get into in next time we talk. But some of the best stories I have are when the players threw me for a loop. And one of them, I don't think I was even DMing. I was playing, and I think you've heard a little bit of that story where we were playing a sci-fi game, and they took my over the comm links. I said to do something to distract them doing something, and then Terry's character did something to distract everybody, and it had everybody in laughing fits for the night. So except me, apparently I was kind of mad, but I got over it. But it was the best. In retrospect, that was like one of the best moments in role-playing history for us. So
what happened?
So, basically, we were playing. I can't remember if we were playing Star Wars or Space Master or something like that. It might have been Space Master because Terry's character was an android, and I think it was Andy that was DMing, and I was playing. I don't even remember what my character was now, but I was on one side of the city trying to do something, and mind you, this is like 20 years ago, so I'm like trying to piece together the memories. Yeah. But it. So I got on the comm link to Terry's character, MT, the android, and told him I need a distraction so that I can do what I'm doing over here. And he said something to the effect of, okay, and then radio silence. And then this building across the city explodes. He just detonates this building. And I can't remember what it was. I don't remember what it was I was trying to do. I don't remember what it was that he blew up. But it was one of those, oh shit, what have you done moments where suddenly the distraction becomes like the flight of our lives, trying to get out of the situation. So I'm rushing to try to get to them, and he's evading the incoming law enforcement. It was just, from what I recall, it was just mass chaos, and and it was done in such a way. I think what made it so hilarious for them was that Terry had written down on a note what his distraction was going to be, and he handed it to Andy. Andy starts laughing. He says, okay. And so Terry starts laughing, and I'm like, what's going on? And then the story evolves and is told. And I'm like, no, that's not what I meant. And everybody, they were all laughing. They had a good time.
That's funny. That's awesome. Yeah. Misinterpretations, deliberate or accidental.
Always good times.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I am sweating like a horse.
Yeah, I got to turn the fans back on. It's hot.
Yeah. But yeah, our runtime's almost 2 hours. So
oh geez.
That's plenty for an episode.
Okay.
Even with all the crap at the beginning. I'm not sure how long that was, but yeah, this was fun, man. Are you willing to come back and
yeah, this is fun. It's like reminiscing. It's great.
Yeah. I've wanted to do more of this, but I haven't been able until now to get someone I actually game with to come on here.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's fun hearing your perspective too. So it's not a question and answer kind of a thing. We both have the same stories and the same references. So it's a lot of fun to hear that.
Yeah, well, I'm really enjoying the campaign, and I'm really excited about what's going to happen with our new castle and what happens when we go down south and everything
Yes,
else.
fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for episode 171 of Game Master's Journey. Be sure to tune in next week for the continuation of my discussion with Brett. If you have any questions you'd like me to ask him, let me know. There are lots of great ways you can get a hold of me, all of which you can find by visiting my website at starwalkerstudios.com. You can get my email address, Twitter, Google+, Facebook, Pinterest, and YouTube information, and the Game Master's Journey voicemail number, where you can call and leave me a message. If your question or feedback is entertaining or enlightening or both, you might even hear your message on the show. If you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions for future topics, or questions for Brett, I would love to hear from you. You can also find a link to the Game Master's Journey community where you can share ideas with other listener GMs, and you can become a listener GM too. And finally, you can learn about how you can support the show by becoming a patron, by making a one-time donation, by using my Amazon referral link when you shop on Amazon, by getting a Game Master's Journey t-shirt, or by purchasing my D&D adventure, The Trickster's Labyrinth. You can find all this and more at starwalkerstudios.com. I hope that you have a chance to play your favorite RPG this week. I hope you have a chance to run your favorite RPG. I'll be back soon with another episode of Game Master's Journey. Until then, game on.
This has been a Starwalker Studios production, your source for quality gaming and hobby podcasts.
This episode's music, courtesy of Cloudwalker, Transboy, Renfield, Stanko, and Ish. See the show notes for more details at starwalkerstudios.com/Game Master's Journey.